this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. We've got a build-up, whereas I thought I was on top of all my seasons repotting and stuff, an influx of plants has happened. Now obviously Jeff's plants are long since forgotten as far as repotting is concerned, they're all over and done. The majority of Derek's got done in one session, but they didn't all get done. Because I'd run out of pots. Now we've had a bit of a boo-boo with the pots from Burnham's. Nice set of pots here. They're too small. I still may be able to use some of them, but it's difficult when you've got lots of pots. You can see what sizes you've got. There is I spent quite a few hours on the internet, eBay, Amazon, everywhere under the sun. These don't exist. They go from that to that. So these are 6 centimetre pots and it jumps to 9, and you can't get the 7s and 8s. I mean, I found one set that said 8 to 9, and basically I had a look at them and they were 9s, they weren't 8 to 9 at all. So I'm missing a set of pots that I've always found very useful, and because of the influx of the sheer number of Derek's small plants, all mine have been used. Now eventually those plants will grow and get potted on and release some of these back into the pile, but at the moment, luckily, most of what's left of Derek's is actually the larger plants, not the small ones that were put to one side. So we should be okay with these, this sort of size. We shall see. But as I said, these I got from Burnham's. I can't see me ever using them, they're just too small. They looked okay on the day in a rack of pots away from plants and things, but they're not right. I'll have to see what Sarah's got next time I go up her other store of pots, a huge big rack just before you go into the private area. God, there must be 10,000 pots in that bit. Right, so this session is to finish off Derek's plants bar 2, and that's the 2 that are currently in bloom, the Prosthetia and the nice Odontoglossum, probably Wilsonara. Now last time I split this bit into 2, I'm going to do it all in one. So first of all we want some media. This is cocoa husk, chopped up small. I've been at it with the scissors again, and what was left from last time, which is got a bit of bark and a bit of grit in it. And I hope that's going to be big enough to mix it in and not all fall out the sides. Run out of space here. Now last time we had about half and half of cocoa husk and Burnham's bark, so we'll aim for somewhere around that again. Yeah, a lot of this is going to fall over the side of my mixing bowl because I don't want to have to come back and mix up another load. Basically I want enough to do the plants that I've got here, which is 6, so it's not a huge volume. I'm happy with that, so that's 2 bits out of the way. Right, now we've got to add in the charcoal. Actually, we add in the grit first, don't we? Then we don't put our dirty hands in the grit. And this is Cornish grit. And it's just to add some solid particles that cannot break down in there, to keep it open. It's just a little bit of, you know, like somebody would add perlite in. I'm adding this in, and it adds a bit of weight to the pot as well. When you're using tiny little pots and tall plants, you know what happens, there's a tendency for pots to fall over. It's got some actual stones in there as well. I wonder where they came from. But yeah, that's the grit, being rock, does add some weight to the pot. That helps them be a bit more stable. That'll do. I'm going to chuck some charcoal in. Actually, if I shake that in, I might not get quite so dirty. Rather than put my hand in there. Job I got some more of that at Burnham's. That's going down. I mean, this is new to me. I mean, I haven't done a mix with grit in it before for orchids. It's just, I found it digging around. I just came across it and thought, oh, I've forgotten I had that. I always use it to top off bonsai trees when I repot them, because it helps keep the weeds down and keeps the slugs off the surface, because they won't walk on that. It'd be a good thing to top all your orchid pots with, keep the slugs off to a degree. Right, so I'm happy with that, apart from the fact I've got very dirty hands now, and I'll just put that stuff in the sink, but we'll just give our hands a quick rinse. So start off clean, or cleanish. We're going to get them dirty again, aren't we? Right, so clean hands. And we have to shuffle a few things round now. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to put that up right up there in the corner, and then I can use this corner for the old media to empty out. Yeah, I've got my scissors with some alcohol because I've got more than one plant. So we'll leave those up in the corner there, again, out of the way with any luck. Right, now let's have a look and see what we've got. This is, it says here, a Wilsonara Tiger Brew Yellow. And we do have signs of new roots here. I'm potting these one at a time, so obviously I don't need to worry about tags getting in a muddle, because for the time being I will retain the existing tags. So we've got, oh, that smells. And you can see why it smells. If you're going to bury them, take them off. I'll cut that because it's there we go. Right. I'm not taking too much off of roots. I'm trying to maintain my finger stuck as much as I can, and any bark that wants to stick to the roots can stick. It's normally a sign that there's some life left in the roots. So signs of new roots coming. Signs of new roots. I'm going to take that leaf off because it's sitting directly below this new growth, and that's where the rest of the new roots will come out. So I'm going to pot that little piece. I'm going to leave those roots on. They may branch out. So that will do for that one. Get that sheath off too. Again, it's hiding a little new root that will now get straight in the media. So that's that one. And this is one of the smallest ones I've got. So that's going to go in. Yes, it will fit in there. Jolly good. Right, so tiny little bit in the bottom, because I've got a long root system here. I'm going to have to twist this round to get them to sit in there. Just turn it like that and they'll come away from the side of the pot. And then we've got the new growth in the middle of the pot. Make sure all our roots are tucked, pointing downwards. Lots of tapping going on. I'm not pushing and shoving. These are small plants. The media will just float down in there, and each successive watering will help bed it in. So it's just a matter of getting it to settle. The back bulb is a bit buried, but all I need to do now is just lift a bit of the media out on either side of that bulb. Now it's not buried, yeah? And the front of the new growth has got the high media around it, so that the roots have got something to get into. So that's one done. Put the tag back in. Chuck that up there, out the way. Right, so next smallest one, and this is a no ID. Although it's got a tag, the tag has only got a number and dates on it. So we don't know what this is. to wait and see, won't we? Again, some reasonable roots. It's not a bad little root system. Some live ends. So it's a viable root system. Sorry mate, but you're coming off even if some of the roots come off with you. I'll only have to bury it. Sheaths off where possible. So you know this new growth is already starting to mature given the size of the plant. And the chances are that means it's already done its roots. So the roots that I've got on this one is probably all there's going to be until another new growth starts. And a little sign of a new root there, a stub there that will grow on. So there are still a few roots to grow, and so I've got to put my scissors back in. There's one root I just want to break off. So that's what we've got, and again that'll. I'm going to run out of small pots, aren't I? Do I want to leave that one on? I'll leave it on for now because it has got a leaf that's green. Otherwise I would take it off. I wonder if I can get one of that. I wonder if I can get that in one of these tiny little pots from Burnham's. They really are small. It will go in there, won't it? Yeah, I'm going to use it. We'll go with that then. As I say, the good thing is that, you know, by hook or by crook, eventually these pots will be released back into the pool, because hopefully these plants are going to grow on. You know, in a year these will probably all need repotting again, and they'll all go in, you know, a bigger pot. And all these can be washed up and put to one side. And the chances of me getting an influx of all small plants at the same time again, I would say is zero. It's just not going to happen, is it? This is just an unusual set of circumstances that I've got that number of plants that are small. It's not normal for me to get plants in like that. I have to push on that one a little bit, not too much. Right, no point in putting the tag back in there. It's got nothing written on it, just some dates. Right, so that's another one done. Right, now this is a big pot, but it's not a big plant. And this is an Odontodia. This is rare. This is Lutix crossed with McBean's Aster. Find many of those lurking around, that's for sure. Let's see what we got in here. Always the way, I expect the rarest plants will be the ones with the lousy root systems. Perhaps I should have shut up. Tempting fate here. This one's a bit niffy as well. These roots are not good at all. Trying to find signs of are there going to be any more? I don't see new roots coming on this the base of this latest growth. Chances are that means what we've got is what there is. Only work with what you're given, can't you? Now, do I want 3 old bulbs and 1 new growth? No, I don't. We'll take one off. Just checking. Right. We'll run with that then. Worth taking any of these roots off? I don't think it is. I mean, some of them are genuinely gone, but some of them are halfway. They look it because they're discoloured, but they're not necessarily dead. Now that's going to have to go in the last of those, that size pot. I believe it will just about go in there. Yes, it will. So then we're going to have to move on to the bigger pots for the next ones. Again, it's quite an extensive root system. It's just that they're not all good roots, but they exist, which is better than. I mean, I've had plants before out here in kitchen sessions where you've just got stumps. There are no viable roots, nothing, and that's what you work with. And sometimes it works out okay, and the plants pick up and push some new roots out, and they get going again. Not always. But if you don't try, they definitely ain't going to make it, are they? You have to put some hope in there, fingers crossed and all that sort of stuff. It's a bit of a game when you're working with unknown plants. These will all get a really good water in, a good soak, because the media's bone dry at the moment. Right, a couple of roots sticking out, but can't be helped. That'll do then. That's another one done. And we'll keep the label with that one. Right. Now we're starting to get the slightly larger stuff. Oh, this is just a Shari baby. We'll put that to one side. And this is probably not what it says. I'm going to stick my neck out here because the label says it's the plant. God, this is absolutely dripping wet. It's the plant that I can never say, but I bet it ain't. Where did the label go? Oh, there it is. Yeah, it says it's Oncidium ornithorynchum. No, I'm not going to say it. I can never say that word. But this is the one that was incorrectly named for well over 100 years. And it turns out that the plant that everybody thought was that name wasn't. So the plant that was described and therefore incorrectly named in black and white turned out to be yellow, and that's the one that's maintained its name, and the one that was actually described is pink, and that's what turned into Sotoanum because it had to be given a new name. This is absolutely dripping wet. I wonder if I did that. But if it is the original that was misnamed and it is the yellow one, then I've got quite a scarce Oncidium. Because the pink one, the Sotoanum, is usually misnamed. So it's sold as that, when it isn't, if you see what I mean. So a lot of people are buying that name and getting a pink fragrant plant, which is Sotoanum. So I think we'll take the one back bulb off of there, leaving that, and a very fine root system. Mitts, lucky mitts. And we'll put this in the first of the larger pots. It's got quite a lot of roots on it, and it's a bigger plant at the end of the day. Right, let's see what we got. We've got an assortment here. They're not all the same, in other words, they're all stacked up together because they're the same size. I'm going to choose that one because of its the sheer amount of ventilation it's got in it, and it's an air cone. So we'll run with that. And grab some of the slightly larger stuff that always seems to work its way to the top when you're mixing. And all the grit and everything's gone to the bottom. Let's give it another stir. Mix it up a bit. Right, new growth somewhere near the front where possible. Start stacking. So I'm putting the media in with this one, and then when I've got quite a bit in there and tapped it down, I'm going to lift the plant up, because the plant's too low in the pot, so I'm leaving it there while I get the media in, and then as I lift it, the media will fall into where the roots gaps are. I'll just get the plant a little bit higher in the pot then. Give this one a little bit of a press down the sides, but not too much. Don't need any more media around the back. You only need media up high on the plant, where the plant's going to grow the roots from. There's no point in burying the bulbs around the back. It's highly unlikely they're going to grow anything. Right, and we will put that label back in, but whether it's the truth or not, only time will tell. Only time will tell. Right, next one, it says Oncidiums sherry. Oh, let's get this one done. This is I grabbed this as a bit of fun because I've lost mine. It just wouldn't grow, so I dumped it in the end. I thought, well, it should be easily replaced. And then, blow me, I haven't seen one for ages. But we'll see if we can get this one on the go. It's just the stump of a rhizome there, so we'll take that off. It'll only rot. Right, don't like the look of that there. Not quite sure. Actually, that's a new growth. We've got a pseudo bulb that's been really, really badly damaged there. That's either rotted or has been eaten by a slug. And the new growth, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do this. That new growth is trying to grow up between those two bulbs. It's curved, when really it would be better if it came out here. Whether I can get it to do that or not remains to be seen. If it goes up between the two, it'll push them apart, so it'll still work. Oh, it's a very deformed bulb that is. As I said, that's looks like it's rotted. Do you know, I have a good mind to try and cut it with the scissors to leave that new growth. But the chances are I could damage it by doing so. You see what I'm getting at? That is rotten. If I leave it there, I've got a feeling it's going to spread. Can I get the scissors in there and cut it? Well, don't need to cut it, it's just come off. Did have a bit of help, I must admit. Right, we'll get these leaves off. We can see the wood for the trees. There's also some new roots there, one of which I've just cut. Pity, but... So we've taken that off now. And you see there's signs of new roots coming under this growth, and that new growth can now see the light of day. And I don't want any rotten bits left there. There we go. And this root system is going to get trimmed because this lot here is dead. These around the outside feel like they might be okay. We shall see. That'll do. So hopefully that new growth hasn't been knocked about enough to actually stop it growing. So we're left with one bulb and a tiny new growth. We haven't got a small pot to put it in. If I take that off, it's a branching root system. Trimming these ends may encourage branching. But what it will do is allow me to get it in that tiny little pot, which accommodates the root system and looks a bit silly because of the size of the bulb, but I can live with that. If it starts to grow, it can be lifted out later and put in a bigger one. Just lift it out and pot it on, not a repot, a pot on. A different kettle of fish altogether. And what we don't want to do is knock that new growth off, do we? Because if that new growth got knocked off, it would be pointless even keeping it. It's just that there would be no point. So. Now the question is, are you going to stand up with your single big leaf? I'm going to have to put a stick in next to that. But at the moment, it's not doing bad. And we'll see what happens. Don't really need that. I don't need that in there. There's nothing else looks like that, is there? Huge big leaf and bulb in a tiny little pot. That's the Shari baby. Right, and the last one. It's quite a large plant, and we hope it's one. Looks like it is. Again, got no label on this. I just grabbed this because it looked like a strong, healthy plant. But it's been potted too deep, and it may be that that's caused. See what I mean? If you pot too deep, these are rotten. They're holding water. These are sheaths. They're holding water. They will rot the base of the bulbs and sometimes take the new growths right off. Just rotten. Don't pot so deep. So I'm taking these back bulbs off because they were the ones that were too low in the pot, basically. And then we've got bulbs coming out the top with a new growth, with bulbs underneath. To pot this sensibly, those bulbs have got to come off, or I'll have to bury them again, and then you encourage the rot. It's just not worth it. I think this is going to come in too. Well, I've made up my mind. It's going into two. Down through there. These little old bulbs in the middle are it's a single piece of rhizome down through there, which is spread out in two directions, which gives me two of whatever it is. I don't know what this one is, but actually now there's three. That's a natural break there. Right, it's got a nice growth heading up here, another new growth there, so this is a good piece. What I am going to do is take that solid piece of rhizome off there, which will take some of the roots with it. And give me a reasonable plant. That's not a bad plant at all. These roots are wiry and some of them are broken, but they're not dead. There are a few dead ones right in the middle there, not many. You should just pluck off because they're a fine root system. You can just give them a sharp tug and they'll come off. Right, we've got one there. Do we keep that bulb? No. See what I mean about burying things too deep? That's the base of the plant now, where these two new growths are. Look where this one is. So it's going to have to come off. I'm just one of those, I just refuse to bury bulbs. I just won't do it. Seen more problems with rot starting from those. Buried, you can't even see it, and it spreads up through the rhizome. You suddenly wonder why your new growths have rotted off. Right, so that's one good piece there. What else we got then? What we got here? So that looks like there might be new growth tucked in there. Yeah, love it when a plan comes together. So we'll take that sheath off. Given that the other one had two, what have we got in here? Gently. Yep. So we've got two starting growths on there, one just flat against the side and one only just an embryo growth, and a bulb that would need to be buried, and again a chunk of rhizome that we don't need. So off you come. That leaves us quite a nice plant with the potential for two good new growths in the near future. Do I want that little bulb? Yes, because it's got a nice leaf on. So that's two pieces. That's two reasonable pieces there. With these roots are good roots. And where did that other bit go? Is that worth hanging on to? It's got new growth, hasn't it? So yes, it is worth hanging on to. Like I've said, plants are becoming precious now. Got a feeling that the rot might have got into the base of that. Make sure it's potted high. That piece now. Do these all go in one pot? This is the weaker one of the set of the three. Well, how about, because I'm a bit dubious about this feels soft, and if that fails, that's not worth keeping. So what I'm going to do is put that in one of those tiny little pots and see what happens, see if it will grow on. So that will go in one of those. Let's get that one done first. And there are some viable roots there, and potentially that's a nice new growth. We don't know what the plant is yet. You know, it might be nothing spectacular, it, you know, could be something really special. So we treat them all as special until we find out otherwise. And you know, it's an Oncidium type, so we'll see what it is when it pushes on. Just make sure that new growth is not buried. Right, that's pretty wobbly, but I'm going to say these pots, the last lot had wobbly ones as well, and I thought, well, there's only me going to touch them, and they'll only get picked up to get watered, and I can pick them up and carry them carefully. So that's that little one. And these two I think I will put in the same pot, and they'll make a nice plant as a bunch like that, and they can go in a reasonable sized pot with an air cone. There we go. This is the last one for today as well. And again, quite a lot of roots on this, so we'll twist them to get them in. Sure they all tuck in and are pointing downwards, not pointing upwards. You can often end up with some pointing skywards, and if that happens to have a growing tip on it and it decides to move, they'll grow straight up and out the pot. You sort of defeat the object then. Have to do a bit of wiggling with this one because roots are tight together. When you get a cluster type roots like that with very little room between them, no amount of tapping will get that. We'll get the media down in between those roots. You can tap away at the pot till you wear your fingers out. It won't work. It only works when the roots are loosely packed and the gaps are quite big. And it works fine then. And it's probably the best way to do it under those circumstances. Height-wise, not bad, not bad. Should be able to lift it a little bit in a minute. Let's get a bit more media down the sides. Right, another unknown. Wait and see. See, in amongst Derek's collection, you know, an orchid enthusiast type person who's into rare and exotic and uncommon species would have thrown Cherry Baby away. Look, what's that? Ugh, nonsense. Nonsense hybrid stuff. Mass produced. It still has very fragrant blooms. I won't say they're overly attractive, but the fragrance makes up for it. Quite happy to have one of those around. Quite honestly, I'd quite happily have 2 or 3 of them around, because that way you might get blooms at different times instead of all at once on one plant, maybe would. Right, so there we go. We've got some unknowns here. A couple of rarities that I'm aware of. You know, they stick out straight away, and well, I say quite a few unknowns here. But that's that session done, and the next session will be the Burnham stuff, and not all of that needs doing straight away, but some does. There's one of the what are endearingly called tiger tails, until I'm proven otherwise, because it looks good, a good enough match for me to say that yeah, you're okay with that. Somebody else said what that was, tiger tail, and 2 of them, even though they're slightly different, I suspect they're both the same thing, and that may even be a nursery name rather than a registered name. Not fussed either way. So there's one of those to do because it's in that peat stuff. The Miltoniopsis from Burnham's, the primary cross, that needs looking at very carefully to decide whether it needs to come out. So, you know, a couple of decisions to be made. Right, so that's that lot done. A good soak for all of those, and back in their shady, cool spot, because that's where these are all living at the moment. They have their own areas, so they don't get muddled up with other things, because they're in their own watering cycle. The ones that we already did in this mix, they're drying quite quickly because of the size of the pots. Now we've got a mixture of pots here, from the smallest pot I own to, you know, a standard sort of 9 centimetre type pot, which has got a lot more media in it, so it won't dry as quick. So all these are on their own separate schedule, and they get looked at quite frequently to make sure they do not dry out. And when you've got new media, despite having the coconut husk in it, it's new media. The bark won't stay wet long at all. It's going to dry fast because it doesn't soak up much water. Nor does the charcoal, and the grit certainly doesn't. So these dry quite quickly, which means they get fresh water in frequently. Which hopefully will pull those roots on. So there we go, kitchen time, and yeah, only one lot of mess. We like that. See you next time.